The rain had already soaked the empty highway when she realized she was completely alone. Her luxury SUV leaned dangerously to one side with a shredded tire, and every passing car ignored her desperate signals. Just when fear began to settle into her heart, an old pickup truck rolled to a stop. The man who stepped out looked like someone the world had forgotten. His work clothes were stained with grease, his boots were worn nearly through, and his face carried the exhaustion of countless sleepless nights. He quietly picked up his tools and knelt beside her vehicle. As she watched him struggle with the heavy tire, something unexpected caught her attention. His hands were shaking so badly that he could barely hold the wrench. At first she assumed it was the cold rain. Then she noticed it wasn't the weather at all. Those trembling hands were hiding a story that would change both of their lives forever. Before we continue, if you believe kindness still exists in this world and that everyone deserves a second chance, please take a moment to like this video, leave a comment, share it with someone you care about, and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps us bring more emotional stories that remind us all to never lose hope. Emily Carter had spent years building a successful career as an architect. Her days were filled with expensive meetings, polished offices, and endless deadlines. Success had brought comfort, but somewhere along the journey it had quietly stolen the warmth from her life. She rarely slowed down long enough to notice the people around her. That evening she had been driving back from an important business meeting, frustrated about delays and anxious to get home before the storm became worse. A sharp piece of metal lying on the road changed everything in seconds. The loud explosion of the tire left her stranded in the middle of nowhere with almost no phone signal. When the mechanic introduced himself only as Daniel, he asked for nothing except permission to help. He worked silently, focusing entirely on the damaged wheel. Emily stood nearby holding an umbrella, but the rain kept blowing sideways, soaking both of them. She noticed sweat running down his forehead even though the evening air had become cold. Every few moments his hands trembled harder. Sometimes he paused for just a second, closed his eyes, and took a slow breath before forcing himself to continue. Emily began to wonder if he was ill. There was something unusual about the way he fought to stay steady. His movements were skilled, almost effortless despite the shaking, proving that he had repaired thousands of vehicles before this one. Yet every twist of the wrench looked like a battle against his own body. She felt an uncomfortable mixture of curiosity and concern. As the final lug nut tightened into place, Daniel leaned back against the truck for a moment, breathing heavily. Emily offered him a bottle of water from her car. He accepted it with a grateful smile that revealed more humility than pride. His eyes looked tired beyond his years, but there was still kindness shining through them. She insisted on paying him generously. Daniel politely accepted only enough to cover the cost of the repair supplies he had used. He quietly explained that helping stranded drivers was simply something he believed was right. Before leaving, he thanked her for treating him with respect. Those simple words stayed with Emily long after their vehicles disappeared in opposite directions. That night she could not stop thinking about those shaking hands. She had seen wealthy executives complain over minor inconveniences, while a man who clearly carried enormous burdens had spent nearly an hour helping a complete stranger in the pouring rain without expecting anything in return. Something about the encounter refused to leave her heart. Several days later, Emily found herself driving through the same small town where Daniel's truck had displayed the name of a tiny repair shop. Curiosity led her there. The building was old, the paint was fading, and business seemed painfully slow. Inside, Daniel was repairing an elderly woman's car while refusing to charge her because she lived on a small pension. Emily watched unnoticed from the doorway as he smiled warmly despite his obvious discomfort. After the customer left, Daniel nearly collapsed into a chair. His hands shook even more violently than before. Emily introduced herself again, and he seemed surprised she had returned. This time she gently asked whether he was all right. For a long moment he hesitated, clearly uncomfortable discussing himself. Eventually he admitted that several months earlier he had been diagnosed with a neurological condition that caused uncontrollable tremors. The treatments were expensive. Without insurance, every appointment meant choosing between medicine and paying the rent for his small garage. Business had become slower because customers assumed his shaking meant he was no longer capable of repairing cars safely. Few realized his knowledge remained exceptional. The disease had affected his body, but not his skill or determination. Emily listened in silence. Every sentence felt heavier than the last. Daniel never complained. He simply described his situation as another obstacle that needed patience and hard work. What hurt him most was not the illness itself, but watching loyal customers slowly disappear because they judged him before giving him a chance. She left the garage carrying an unexpected feeling of responsibility. For the first time in years, her professional success felt strangely empty. She had resources that could change someone's future, while a hard-working man was quietly losing everything simply because life had been unfair. Over the following weeks, Emily began telling friends, co-workers, and neighbors about Daniel's repair shop. She wrote honest reviews online describing his professionalism and integrity. She arranged for her company's entire fleet of service vehicles to be maintained at his garage. Slowly, the empty parking lot began filling with customers again. The increase in work brought hope back into Daniel's life, but Emily noticed something even more important. His smile became easier. His shoulders no longer carried the same crushing weight. Although the tremors remained, he worked with renewed confidence because people were finally seeing his talent instead of his condition. One afternoon, Emily visited unexpectedly and found Daniel sitting beside an old photograph of a smiling little girl. He explained that she was his daughter, Lily, who lived with her grandparents while he struggled to rebuild his finances. Every dollar he earned went towards supporting her future. His greatest dream was not buying a bigger house or a newer truck. He simply wanted to be healthy enough to watch her grow up. Those words broke something inside Emily. She realized that true wealth was measured by love, sacrifice, and hope, rather than numbers in a bank account. Determined to do more, Emily quietly organized a community fundraiser. Local businesses donated supplies. Former customers shared stories about how Daniel had helped them when no one else would. Mechanics from neighboring towns volunteered their time. The event grew larger than anyone expected. Hundreds of people attended, not because they felt sorry for Daniel, but because they wanted to honor a man who had spent years putting others before himself. By the end of the evening, enough money had been raised to cover months of specialized treatment and modern therapy. Even more valuable than the donations was the overwhelming reminder that kindness always leaves footprints, even when we think nobody notices. As treatment continued, Daniel's condition became easier to manage. His hands still shook, but less severely. More importantly, hope replaced fear. His garage expanded, he hired 2 young apprentices, and he became known throughout the county not only for excellent repairs, but for teaching struggling teenagers valuable skills and honest work. Emily often visited just to sit quietly with a cup of coffee while customers came and went. Watching Daniel laugh with people who once doubted him reminded her that small moments can completely redirect a person's life. If she had driven away without noticing those trembling hands, none of it would have happened. Years later, a young woman walked proudly across a graduation stage to receive her engineering degree. Daniel watched with tears in his eyes as Lily hugged him tightly. The sacrifices, the sleepless nights, the painful treatments, and the endless determination had all been worth it. Emily stood in the audience, smiling through her own tears, grateful that one flat tire on a lonely highway had connected 2 strangers whose lives would forever remain intertwined. If this story has touched your heart so far, please take a moment to like this video, subscribe to the channel, share it with your friends and family, and leave a comment. Your support encourages us to continue sharing true-to-life stories that inspire kindness and hope. Special request: before this story ends, please comment with the words, "Kindness always comes back." We'd love to know how many people still believe that one small act of compassion can change someone's entire life. Life rarely announces its greatest moments with celebration. Sometimes they arrive disguised as inconveniences, delays, or unexpected detours. A flat tire on a rainy highway seemed like nothing more than bad luck, yet it became the beginning of 2 transformed lives. Emily learned that real success means using our blessings to lift others instead of simply climbing higher ourselves. Daniel proved that dignity does not disappear because of hardship, illness, or poverty. The world may notice expensive clothes and luxury cars first, but lasting respect is earned through compassion, honesty, and quiet courage. The next time you pass someone whose clothes are stained, whose hands are rough, or whose life appears ordinary, remember that every person carries a story invisible to the eye. Sometimes the strongest people are the ones whose hands shake the most because they have been carrying burdens no one else could see. And sometimes all it takes to change a life forever is the simple decision to stop, notice, and care. That is how hope grows. That is how kindness survives. And that is how ordinary people create extraordinary miracles that continue inspiring hearts long after the rain has stopped.